priority for the bottom lane. You're exactly right, Clement, to focus on that, give Sam D a bit of priority, and maybe outside of the laning phase, the first pick Samira, not something you see with other teams, because we know that teams just run an Alistar into it and it can be useless.
The thing about Samira is she is very much feast or famine. We have seen her played in the LPL. When she gets ahead, when she finds a triple kill early, the game feels like it's unsurmountable. You can't really shut her down. She has way too much healing into her kit. But on the flip side, if you target her early, if you make sure she doesn't find any wild skirmishes early on, then she isn't that impactful in late game team fights. She has a very difficult time getting over the front line of opponent teams. So if you just stay away from her and you have someone that can body block, her efficiency goes down tremendously. And I want to see how they sort of draft around this. I would expect EDG to pick up something that has a little bit more range. Something like the Aphelios does feel very nice here.
I'm very curious because we've got another form of CC. It's not what I'm used to, which is the Alistar running into it. It's the Thresh. So there is CC for that lane. Xiaopeng, if you're going to tease me, better get to the job. If we see the Udyr, you've got the two Udyr players on the LPL team in this game. So we're going to see the Gnar for now, and we'll find out if they want to round out with the jungle.
Udyr on patch 11.1 is a very good answer to double AP jungle mid. You always win those skirmishes because you have that rune selection, and you always want to go for the Turbo Chem Tank, which is very much an MR item on this patch right now.
Yeah.
So if you get that double mid, you see the Lillia early, a lot of times players will be opting into that. However, they do see the Alistar still up. They want the Samira Alistar combo, probably the deadliest combo we have in the bottom lane right now. They're just going to lock that in.
Absolutely. Keeps airborne targets airborne for an extra second longer, you know, with the passive of Samira. So it is a really nice duo. Sam D and T pairing up once again. We'll see if the AD carry comes here from EDG. This is a natural selection, and this is what Viper and Meiko have run before. Meiko's Thresh is legendary. Viper on a late game scaling AD carry. Here we go.
Nice. This is what I want to see out of it. You can keep your distance away. And I do expect EDG to just drop themselves some more front lines. I think something like the Galio will work out pretty well. Something like the Ornn is definitely not off the table. Yeah. EDG are definitely willing to sort of go into a bad matchup onto the top lane just to round out their composition. On the other hand, for TT, we still haven't seen their jungle and mid. Twila and Xiaopeng being kept together. They like to pick together. It's very interesting to see what they have, what they want to do now. I think for TT, they are looking for a more skirmish-based game. So things like Galio, I think, would be pretty good here. And other champions with knockups. I'm thinking about what jungle they could potentially take.
What else do we have left and available, Clement? Because, you know, the Hecarim's banned away. We've got Pantheon, Olaf, Elise, Nidalee taken away.
I want something with crowd control. That would definitely be preferable here.
You want a skirmish? Bring the deer!
The deer is already picked away. Flandre has a deer. Oh, Udyr. Oh, sorry. I thought you said the deer.
The deer? You're in the Bambi land, sir. You're in the Bambi. We'll see. Like, Xiaopeng still does pick out his jungler. Now, for the other side, we need solo laners. And you talked about EDG willing to blind pick into the matchup for top lane.
Yeah, it's not technically a blind pick. It's more like a... I think they should be willing to sacrifice their picks here. But, ooh, I really like the Gangplank matchup here. It's very strong in lane early against the Gnar. And we've seen recently the build with nerf to Triforce. People have been going for Essence Reaver into the Immortal Shield Bowl. Very strong split pushing as well. And you can also help out on the other sides of the map. It also has pretty good synergy against Samira. She can't really walk up.
Champion? Do you remember? This was Xiaopeng's best.
This is his ode to Clear Love, man. You remember the good old days when Rek'Sai was on the map?
Hey, you know, Teeen was one of the best Rek'Sais as well. Xiaopeng, you know, bringing back Rek'Sai. It's been a while since we've seen her, so now would he pair up in the mid lane because she has really good 2v2 matchups. And we get the Orianna.
But the Orianna does have a little bit more airborne that you can chase up onto, but I would have preferred the Syndra just for maximum pressure and indexing into skirmish. Meiko seems to find something funny about putting Scout once again on Azir. This is his pick for the champion, so sometimes you have to treat your support nicely if you want that counter pick.
All right, 7 seconds to lock that one in, and that kind of facilitates one, but you got Cannon Barrage, you got the Emperor's Divide. A lot of space to create, and Clement, walk me through EDG, because They've got a lot of wombo effects. They've got a lot of scaling on this roster.
Yeah, EDG are playing a teamfight composition where they can zone out opponents with shorter ranges. So TT, it's going to be very hard for them to utilize Rek'Sai or Samira in the late games situations. I think what they have to do is basically just force gank bot lane over and over again. I don't even like their chances that much in Drake fights necessarily. Okay. I feel like it's very easy for EDG on the red side to kind of come in late and just use their range to kind of poke out TT in this scenario. They don't actually have a good top lane matchup either. So, you know, I'm leaning very much in favor of EDG having a lot more options, having a lot more scaling, and TT on the other side just trying to force things in the bottom side.
So hit bot and maybe what, picks or small skirmishes with a numbers advantage, Clement, if you can get the wave pushed. Like, is that what you want to see?
If Samira gets 3 kills early, she's a win condition. Enough said.
Well said. All right, that's why people are complaining about the champion, but feast or famine, Mr. Chu told you. And if chat listened to Mr. Chu, then they'd realize that this could go one way or it could go the highway for TT. A 0-1 start here. They're 0-3 in the league, and this has not been a great start. They went up against RNG, LNG, WE. They've versed very hard teams. They've got V5 coming up next. It's not getting any easier. And EDG trying to smack them for a quick 2-0. Will they let them know Xiaopeng back on his legendary Rek'Sai? And if anyone can do it, he can. Here's game 1, a slow start. Game 2 in question. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Summoner's Rift. Welcome to LPL for week 4. Welcome to EDG's start of dominance as a potential running into this.
So to talk a little bit about the Rek'Sai, funnily enough, the person that's been spamming the most Rek'Sai and high challenger has actually been Clearlove. He has not given up this champion. He loves the Queen. He plays him. Last time I checked, he still had over 70% win rate on this champion, and his build has been Stridebreaker, just to give you a lot more chase potential and a lot more HP into the team fight. So I wonder if Xiaopeng will follow the same build.
Okay, Stridebreaker on Rek'Sai, that's super interesting. Mythic is going to be a massive question, because again, yeah, in competitive play, I'm not sure if this is the first Rek'Sai, but at least in Premier Regions, definitely is. So this is going to be a massive throw into the air as to the Mythic. You talked about the Stridebreaker already. We'll remember that as EDG throwing the white flags in a little bit early, but they're setting up for an invade.
I like this idea. If you're against an enemy team that really wants to all in onto ganks, then disrupting their tempo is incredibly important. This is going to be a great late invade. However, TT could seize the opportunity and try to fight them here in this 8-man duel.
This is just fun. Jiejie gets level 2 first, and out they go with Raptors. No red buff steal. Viper and Meiko pathing down aggressively through Tribrush.
This is a massive win on the side of EDG. They get the jungle advantage. They make sure that there's no level 3 shenanigans coming out of Rek'Sai. If you remember Rek'Sai, he's actually really, really good at level 3 blue side ganks. There's way too many angles he can hit you from, so they make sure he can't do that and force him onto the top side, which is just buys a lot of time for Jiejie to actually find his way back onto this side of the map as well.
And it's not just a win for Jiejie, right? It's a win for the bottom lane, because Viper and Meiko, even though they missed out on some of the wave, Sam D came in late. He went the long way around red because he was pivoting to see if anything would make of the play. So he's late into the wave. He's currently on 0 CS, as he can't even walk up.
And we talked about this in draft. The win con for TT is pretty much hit bot early, hit bot hard, and try to snowball the Samira. If not, that's not going to happen. They don't actually have a lot of options in their solo lanes to find ganks here. So I do expect EDG to have Jiejie come back, and this trade is going to be very dangerous.
Yes, it is. Calibrum, the second shot almost connects. And this is just going from bad to worse. Look at the big minion wave still. Sam D's level 1. He gets his first CS. Everyone cheered. And as this finally pushes in, it's going to be very hard to step up with Calibrum still in the hands of Viper.
Yep, and meanwhile in the top side, as we were talking about, Gangplank does have a relatively advantageous early few levels, so he will use that to scout out where Xiaopeng is on the map. They know the Rek'Sai is on the top side. This bottom is completely open. They can continue to play as aggressive as possible, and they know they won't get punished for it.
And I like Scout's positioning in the wave, right? Playing towards Jiejie, who's towards the bottom side. He's downward in the mid lane. And Jiejie can move in an instant. He's on the scuttle. He'll be taking that very shortly as well. Scout, you can see, in the wave, going to be moving down, needs the shifting sands, down towards Jiejie. Xiaopeng gets absolutely nothing except a bit of pressure, but Scout just pokes him out as well.
And I want to mention something that is so interesting and something that so far I've only seen SOFM do. He actually left his red buff alive to path towards the bottom side of the map. So Xiaopeng was kind of confused right there. Like, he thought that with Jiejie going towards his red buff, he saw that through the mid lane, that buff wasn't going to be there. So he actually goes back down to his own red and then finds Jiejie with perfect tempo.
What a nuisance. In he comes again. I don't know who the smite went down to. I think Xiaopeng. Did Xiaopeng get it? And Clement, your eyes a bit...
Not really sure, but I know who's going to get the red buff.
Yeah, it's going to be Jiejie, so that's what matters in the end. You said he left his own red. If Xiaopeng goes in now, he'll be able to take it away, but he could just be heading for the Raptors, which he knows is definitely there. So Xiaopeng trying to catch up after getting bullied out a second time at those Raptor camps.
And what I love about this is it's basically a lose-lose situation for TT, especially for their bot lane. Sure, Xiaopeng might be able to trade away the red buff, a very delayed trade, but that also means that Samdi and Teen have to sit underneath this tower for extended amounts of time. So, you know, Jiejie doesn't even matter, and oh no, he doesn't even get the red buff.
No, doesn't. Still there. Jiejie's walking past to the Krug's gonna leave it for now. Get some movement speed off his passive as he swings by. You can see even in the top lane, you know, Flandre trading okay. Chelizi has the push, but now they have to be careful. Pings are going down, and where for TT, Clement? You know, you already talked about the bottom lane, but how do you stop this bleeding?
Can I just tell you something pretty sad? This Rek'Sai has only been able to farm his own blue quadrant of the map.
Yeah.
The bottom side was taken away early. He did get the Raptors from the top side. Let's be clear about that. But he is massively behind in CS, and the quadrant that he's farming from is one of the furthest quadrants away from his bottom side. And I just have to commend EDG for doing such a great job. The level 1 force out, not taking the red buff for extra tempo, and contesting Xiaopeng's red buff by himself. Also using the priority from Flandre to make sure they could keep tabs onto the Rek'Sai. All of these things change so well together, and they're just punishing this Rek'Sai. Like, Xiaopeng is not having a fun time.
And this can balloon, right? You know, Xiaopeng, if he falls behind, we know Rek'Sai is such an early game dominant champion, especially when Jiejie adds to the comp of EDG that want to scale, and you talked about scaling up. You know, they're very comfortable in those team fights, and this is already just such a good pace for them. Even getting more bot side control now with the dragon spawning, and the scuttle crab being taken.
I will say that Xiaopeng doesn't look like he's going to go for Strikebreaker. This is the go broke or go home sort of build. We shouldn't be seeing this skirmish happen just yet.
Yep.
But this looks like it could potentially be Brawlers.
Shockwave brings in. Jiejie gets the smite down, though. He got the Raptors, and he got what he came for. Doesn't really care, as he has a level advantage now with the Lilting Lullaby. Xiaopeng dodges away with a quick sweep, and Jiejie continues to stay in this enemy jungle.
And this is just so painful to watch. How are you going to snowball Samira if your jungle can't even walk to the bottom side of the map?
You said what you meant, Clement. You said what you meant. Hey, if it was Udyr, Xiaopeng, he wouldn't be in this deficit, man. That's all I'm saying. Udyr would have done better.
Trust the man bear pig. He at least has a crowd control.
Man bear pig. Someone's been watching too much South Park. Well, Dragon's going to go down, at least for now. Xiaopeng trying to make a response on the top side. He goes into the enemy jungle. And while Krugs are there, he's got his eyes on the prize of Flandre, but he has Cannon Barrage. Very hard to dive GP who has set up.
Yeah, and Xiaopeng's still looking for his level 6. He doesn't have it just yet, so not really having a lot of burst. But, you know, they still get the flash out of Flandre. That's good. I do want to talk about his build. We have seen also Prowlers come out from some Rek'Sais as well. You do have a lot of burst potential, and if you use that first before you get the true damage proc, I believe you can actually increase the damage on your true damage as well.
Yep.
The Ferocious Bite.
Yeah, Prowler's Claw, probably the least picked up item in competitive League of Legends. I believe we saw it in LEC or LCK last night on a Renekton. Someone can validate that for me there. But of course, lethality item and getting the dash through the target, that bonus physical damage to that target, and increasing your damage. So it'll be great for the 1v1 potentials. That hook lands, but Teen, he didn't have 6, even if he wanted to pop that Unbreakable Will. Finally getting somewhere in this lane. Clement, Sam D, and T are finally out of the shadow of their turret.
Yeah, and I think they've actually done a very good job. Ooh.
On to Meiko. If they find a kill here, it gets even better. You want that S ranking, baby. Flashes forward. Sam D now has his eyes on a bigger prize. 200 versus 201 years. And Viper remains the classic. Cannon Barrage helps out as well as Ninja Gaiden starts sending down shurikens, and only Teen survives.
But it's not going to be a fair fight in the end. Viper could have won that if not for Flandre's Cannon Barrage coming down.
True.
And they're not going to get that much of a snowball coming in either. They will trade away the Herald for it. Now, it's kind of an interesting situation. I do want to see them actually kind of use the Herald towards the bottom side just to get a little bit more gold.
Ooh, Scout. Emperor's Shuffle flies through. Twila has to flash away. Herald now picked up, though. Jiejie gonna get the Lilting Lullaby. Chelizi doesn't have a Mega Gnar bar. Meiko's coming in with the Death Sentence. Forces Xiaopeng to flash away. He wanted that objective, and if he died, it would have just been too much salt for the wounds. So good to see he gets it, and that TT are managing to claw back some of the gold and the early game deficit.
Yeah, very well done on their part here. They do get away with their lives, and that was pretty big for Xiaopeng. The thing about going into lethality when you're already behind on the map in tempo is the item actually doesn't give you that many stats. It only scales up with armor penetration when you get your own levels up. That's how lethality works, and against the later it goes, the least effective that item actually is becoming. So we have to pay close attention here and hope that he can find some kills early on. But going into the bot lane, this was really well done on Meiko's part. He does stop Sam D from coming in, but that was definitely a wrong exhaust. That definitely did not go onto the right target there. Sam D sees his opportunity and flies in.
And Viper gets to stay in the lane, still 10 CS up. Sam D, as he comes back, though, he has the Noon Quiver, and the kill's going to feel like it closes in part of the gap that was built up in the early game. Again, we mentioned that Sam D and T was stuck in this wave, and they were stuck next to the turret. So the fact that they're contesting a 2v2 is good news for TT, despite how this early game went. We'll see if Xiaopeng can get back to the original game plan you mentioned and try and hit bot and punish some of these summoner windows.
Yeah, and we also have to pay attention to some of the other summoners in, especially the mid lane. Scout does have a TP advantage over Twila, so they have to be very careful about this one. And before they actually make their move, they will have to scour the brushes for some backside wards. And I also want to mention something interesting on Jiejie. He's actually not going for a mythic first.
He's not. Zonya's first item here on the Lillia. Just to correct there quickly for our audience, a flash window, you were saying, for Scout over Twila, even bigger when you consider the summoners. But back up to your point, the Zonya's first item, I mean, that lethality, even more so, is going to be, when that item finally comes through, it's going to be a lot harder to deal with Jiejie.
This is such a fun item build coming out from Jiejie. I really like this. I think it's much more beneficial than going for something like Moonstone Renewer or just going for like the Liandry's later on, but nothing's going to happen of it. I like it because mainly what we have seen EDG do is poke Jiejie into the enemy jungle and try to keep Rek'Sai down that way, so he does need a lot of armor and survivability for that one.
Xiaopeng gonna get tagged. Yes, he is. Lilting Lullaby, and he doesn't have a flashy bird before. Uses that ulti to dive on in. He had no way in it but the highway. Scout flashes away from Chelizi, who's going into the Mega Gnar. Jiejie, remember, that's on his hourglass, paying dividends as a Cannon Barrage flies down. And Twila still has the shockwave, didn't get to use it here on his Orianna.
I'm almost not sure if that was better. He would have died either way, but that was kind of a
probably
kind of a keck way to go out. Unfortunately.
Well, he's got the Prowler's Claw now, Clement, so it definitely wasn't worth, but it was a quick back timing where he didn't actually have to press a B button.
Oh, that is true. That is true. You know, that is a great way to go back to base.
That's right. Optimism. So, Prowler's Claw now picked up. We'll see what happened in the bottom lane. A flash forced out of Viper from an engage from Teen. I don't think he died in the end as topside. We come back to a bit of live action, and live action, I remember that was the turtle, man. Chelizi now walking away, flashes in the end with the Boomerang Blade slowing them down. Death Sentence doesn't connect down here, but S rank achieved, ready to fly in as Xiaopeng uses the Prowler's Claw, but it's dodged away from by Meiko. And EDG's bottom lane at 2v3 quite comfortably.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised that he was able to dodge away from that one. Meiko with the good footwork, and 2v3, they're fine, just like you mentioned right there. I do like the window that TT were trying to go for. There was no Cannon Barrage coming in from the top lane, and it looked like EDG were playing pretty aggressive. It's just a little bit unfortunate. The execution wasn't really there to close the deal.
Well, we're to a point where EDG managed to have a little bit more gold than TT. Cloud Dragon coming up, and with the resets on the map, it feels like TT are not going to be to this one first, but Jiejie the same as Blue Buff. Resets and not starting it up for now. I think it's also important to note, Clement, that, you know, again, the compositions that you labeled down is, for EDG, the scaling element definitely there. The feast or famine of a Samira, well, at least getting past that famine point, means there's a lot of opportunities here for TT to scale themselves and move into this game. Clement, did you press your mic button? Did you mute? Mr. Chu?
I'm here. I'm back. I'm
How
back.
dare
Sorry.
you?
Hey,
How dare you?
You know me so well. But I definitely think it's a situation where, never mind, Meiko is fine. Xiaopeng, oh, he's just dead.
And Xiaopeng's dead. Prowler's Claw, yep, no resistances. A dragon goes down. Team with the engaged scout with a pretty average ultimate. Jiejie going golden with the Zhonya's Hourglass. He might sacrifice his life as the Lilting Lullaby wasn't even used. So Sam D gets another kill at the cost of Dragon and one of their own.
Yeah, I still think EDG are pretty fine with that one. It's just a 1-for-1 trade on their end. And that's kind of the problem about Prowler's Claw and why we haven't seen that many people be using it. It's a very snowball build, especially on someone like Rek'Sai.
Yep.
You don't have a lot of HP, and the way you just go in is with your face in the front line, so never really works out that well for you. I do still like the Stride Breaker a little bit better. You still have a lot of damage, and if you're ganking someone, like, let's say you're ganking this bot lane with 3v2, if you got Stride Breaker, you'll still find the kill. It doesn't matter if it's Stride Breaker or
You know, the biggest build I'm seeing in this game that we haven't talked about is there's an Iceborne first on Chelizi.
Yes.
Very different role when we've seen Stride Breaker, we've seen Divine Sunderer, we've even seen Gore Drinker. We have never seen an Iceborne, sorry, Frozen Gauntlet in the top lane.
So I was just checking Frostfire, and the slow field actually isn't impacted by whether you're range or melee or not. So you still get the same effect out of the item, even if you're in mini Gnar form. That's probably a pretty good reason to pick that item up, and it does help you with the split pushing. You know, a lot of times Flandre might be able to cleanse away the slow from your boomerang, but you're going to have consistent ones.
Oh no. ADG challenging the Herald though, Clement in the meanwhile. Into the pit, the steal, not there. Shockwave brings him in and Jiejie's dead. Cannon Barrage used, no Lilting Lullaby for the second time. As Flandre is too far forward, that knock up beautiful. And it's a double over to Xiaopeng. His Rek'Sai, although behind early, is coming in clutch now.
I wanted to say the only place that Prowler's Claw really made a huge difference in the ganks was definitely going to be top lane, because Flandre is basically a standing AD carry, and they finally find good use of it, just sniping those 2 kills. And I wonder what Xiaopeng's going to build next. Is he going to continue to go on the lethality experiment here?
Yeah, because now it's a bit more stated, right? Now it's you can clarify that, all right, well, he's found a bit of a lead, he can continue down this path. At the very least, you know, while we were talking about Thick Boy Gnar as the Moonlight Vigil misses from Viper, he's going to get quite large with his size, you know, also the bonus health that comes with it. We got to talk that, like, we're seeing an Essence Reaver first out of our GP top from Flandre. We've got a Zhonya's first, like, this is riddled with interesting kind of different builds.
We have seen GP with Triforce at the start of the split, but a lot more people have gone over towards the Essence Reaver build now that the Triforce has been nerfed a lot in terms of AD. So the thought process is you don't really need the attack speed. Essence Reaver is pure AD. It's 30 extra AD over the Triforce. So for most of the Q poke harass, you're actually doing a little bit better in lane.
Viper just bullying out Teeen. Further to your point as well, when he gets that second item, it's going to be really nice for Flandre because he's gone through this laning phase quite well. I know we explained the matchup at the start, but you know, as we get into the split push, we know that GP is a menace, and especially in these fights, if he's on the objective first, set up with the barrel chain can stop any engage coming from a team.
Yeah, I just want to re-clarify. Actually, you still do more damage with the Triforce because of the Spellblade block is 200% compared to 100% extra AD. But Essence Reaver does come out as a more efficient item just because you don't have to spend your gold onto attack speed. And Also because you do have some mana issues just constantly poking out in lane. So we have seen a pretty strong shift to that being the first item, and then getting your life seal and sort of split push power from the Immortal Shield Bow.
Also, you know, just 20% crit chance. The fact that our Zeal items and pretty much all mythics have that 20% now, like a flat, nice mark. Very easy to track. You know, plus ability haste. When we're talking 20, we're on like the 16% cooldown reduction chain. So feels pretty nice. He actually backed away, and Flandre, I'm going to be interested to see if he got his mythic with this second buy, because we're 30 seconds from Dragon Clement. EDG already have 2. They're moving quickly towards an Infernal Soul point, which could just end this game at 30 to 35 minutes if they get that dream fight.
Yeah, so I think all eyes have to be on Xiaopeng right now. He found some really good catches to start things off. They have the Herald, so they had that early access into the river as well. And maybe we can see Twila finally find a good combo with his teammate. He has the Alistar as a ball delivery system, but so far in this series, I haven't been impressed with the shockwaves. Can he find it here?
Hey, that's the shield bow picked up for Flandre. 2 items, Cannon Barrage onto his position. He flashes away. The ultimate from Viper misses again. He may not have played Aphelios that much, as into the backline. Jiejie with the 2-man sleep. EDG now want to send this fight up as a 2-man shockwave. Is the retribution into the backline. Rek'Sai, she kills herself into the wall. Chelizi kills somebody else, and Scout's still here trying to auto away. He'll manage to find one, but now onto Twila. He goes in with the shifting sands, and there was a lot of inting across the board with a lot of cool plays.
That was a really cool comeback from TT. They actually got chunked down early by Flandre, had to go into the river without really boxing out EDG onto the top side, but in that critical blue choke is where they found all of their advantage. They got Jiejie down early, they stopped Viper from doing a lot of damage, and if you could see Azir, Scout wasn't doing anything in most of that team fight. He was actually just knocked out by Teeen. Teeen kept him out of the entire thing for a long time.
Yes, he did. A lot of ultimates were suboptimal from EDG though, Clement. Let's be quite realistic. Like, you know, Viper, this is the second time on our screen he's missed his Moonlight Vigil, and he had Gravitum in an AoE choke, so that could have been very different sets up for Jiejie. And, you know, Viper, he's 2-1, so he's still kind of fed, but every time we get in one of these fights where EDG misplay or TT find that advantage, they're giving Samira more kills, and we'll see how it started onto Flandre again.
Yeah, we see the miss ultimate coming out from Viper, like you mentioned, and this is the point where I felt like EDG kind of lost their bearings. Jiejie goes in too early, and then they give up a beautiful 2-man shockwave over to TT. Xiaopeng's able to deliver. Viper finds himself right in front of a Mega Gnar, dies, and Scout wasn't really in that fight whatsoever.
Scout ulted pretty much nothing again. So Scout's Azir ultimates didn't hit the mark. And now we're
this split, EDG has been famous for going to game 3s. Because they, in their first 3 series, they always went to game 3. That's what Jiejie was referring to at the start. He was telling his fans, "I'm sorry, but might not be a game 3 against TT." He might have spoken too soon.
Maybe he did. Maybe he did. We'll see. Sam-D's in a very good position. The dragon was just taken as Baron has now spawned. Chelizi pushing on this side lane with Titanic Hydra. Look how chunky this boy is now. 2 items. The frozen fire. Holy crap! Why did they change?
Frostfire Gauntlet.
Frostfire Gauntlet. Excuse me. Has beefed him up a bit more, and he's in a pretty good position now, hitting 2 items himself. So you can see in the last team fight, Chelizi was a big impact on the back line.
I've never seen this build, but I'm really curious at how it does, because you do have the extra HP from every legendary with the Frostfire. It gives you 100 extra HP, and that scales very, very well with the Titanic Hydra, because the Titanic Hydra, when you're range, I believe it's reduced to 60%, but you still get a bit of a cleave effect on that one, and it's essentially double scaling here. For all the extra HP you get, it also buffs up the Titanic Hydra thing.
True. You know, Hysterics gauge 3rd, right, with the pickaxe shown, would be like the perfect trifecta of items here on this Gnar. Also note that, you know, you give space to Xiaopeng to do his business. He's got a Prowler's Claw, we talked about at the start of the game. Serrated Dirk there as well, Clement. So he's indexing in. He's going all in. What do you want to see next? Edge of Night, Youmuu's, like, where do you go here?
I think Edge of Night is the more standard one.
Okay.
It definitely is a more... considering how many times he's died right after he ulted, I think Edge of Night is definitely the go-to one for him. But interestingly enough, this is something that I have applauded TT for, is they have very good recognition of win conditions in their games. They might not have, you know, the mechanical skill to outmuscle their opponents, but they are very good at identifying what they should go for. And what EDG lacks right now is a tank. They have no one that can take over the damage. So if a Chelizi can chase someone down in the side lane, and you have Xiaopeng going in and just assassinating someone right off the bat, you could win these team fights very easily.
Because I know you talked about EDG's comp being like, well, I prefer this composition in draft because for TT, their avenue of play wasn't that simplistic, right? You know, it relied a lot around what Xiaopeng could do, propping up SamD and Teeen in the early game, and through a couple of lane plays, SamD's now in a good position, Xiaopeng's in a good position, Twila has that wombo alongside Chelizi, so scaling doesn't feel as simple as we talked about, right? Like, it does feel like TT could have better setup alongside picks and maybe re-engaging on these objectives.
Yeah, EDG definitely still have the scaling in their corner, but what TT could do to alleviate that is just pick off a member instantly, and all of their members are rather easy to kill. You're talking about Xiaopeng, he does 15% extra damage with that Prowler's Claw going in onto someone, and he has double lethality items right now, so it's very possible for them to sort of find a two-man game that like they're setting up into the bottom side.
Pick potential. I'll keep that in mind. The Edge of Night was picked up. We saw Xiaopeng get it burnt before. I want to add an apology. We did actually yesterday see the Frostfire Gauntlet on a Gnar, so I apologize for that. But it's still a very rare sighting and something I love with the LPL players. Sometimes they are willing to experiment and show us what they've been doing in solo queue. SamD dodging away from the swell seed. Clement, you know what they're fighting over. The Infernal's up in 3 seconds.
Going to be a very close one, and the question for EDG is who's actually going to poke their head into this fight first. It seems like to me that they're not going to have a choice.
Teeen starts off the engage. Chelizi here going into Mega Gnar. Scout bops him away. Shockwave hits onto 2. But Viper's already got the pick onto Xiaopeng as Teeen is running for his life. He doesn't want to be turned into red meat while SamD takes the Moonlight Vigil with Infernum attached. EDG, 5 members standing means 5 members going to Dragon.
Oh, that was kind of tragic for Xiaopeng, but I believe he blew up before he could deliver the ball to where it needed to be. So the wombo combo falls apart, and he also pays with it with his life.
Oh my god. Viper is just walking into turret. It takes no damage because Sephram. And goodbye. If that was any hope of TT defending, and Viper just continues to show his muscle.
And Xiaopeng finally gets the item that he needed the most. He picks up the perfect timing here. He's going to have the stopwatch, so that doesn't happen again. But I do want to see how that fight started off. I felt like it was actually a pretty decent setup from TT. They did have the perfect flank. They did reach the back line, but for some reason, the ball and Xiaopeng were not really hitting at the same time. And yeah, the ball does get the pull, but Xiaopeng was already dead there, so there wasn't any follow-up damage. They have a great lilting lullaby coming out from Jiejie, zoning everyone out. And in pure LPL fashion, we come back to another replay.
Yeah, now 5 versus 4. You have a composition that can start hitting this Baron. Let's go. TT gonna test it up, and EDG stuck in a 4 versus 5 with Scout's teleport, but he's down for 35 seconds.
And Flandre is so far away from the fight, he has to teleport in, but he's going to be so late, and he doesn't have the cannon barrage just
Clement
yet.
setting up the barrel chain. He has the cannon barrage in about 3-4 seconds, but Xiaopeng's going back in for the smite, and TT have secured it. Jiejie now running away from a big angry dinosaur. He gets slowed down into the wall, sent back into his team. Team bops him up. It's asleep, but he's the one who could go to bed in the end as Viper ranging down. Chelizi gets hit by the cannon barrage, but it's too late. Team will be the trade while Xiaopeng is waiting on the back end. Can anyone see him? He wants the flank here. As they approach the turret, that Rek'Sai is coming in red hot onto Viper, changes target onto Meiko, hits the backline. They found a pick, and TT still getting burnt down as Viper's got the range advantage. And they're like, no, this was the wrong move. Ninja Gaiden again. Viper forces him to flash over the wall and almost single-handedly carries a fight while Scout takes down Chelizi, and it's all gone bare-breasted for TT.
Oh, TT finally clawed back the lead, but they give it back in an instant. That was a very tragic chain of events coming in. Xiaopeng waited a long time. He goes in, he trades off the support, but then SamD goes in too far. He goes straight up to Viper's grill and gets shut down into the dirt.
No one goes into Viper's grill, Clement. You've seen his grills, man. They're as expensive as hell. He's got 3 items and he carried the fight. Like, he had that Infinity Edge, and now it's just like, well, Baron play negated about minus 2,000, excuse me, in the top right of your screen. And this is what set up the Baron with Scout getting caught out.
A very good play from Teeen. He pops the turbo chem tank to get the first kill, but I need to see what happens right here. Why is SamD deciding to go in right in front of Viper? What happened there to make them do that play? That was the most baffling moment in this entire sequence. So Xiaopeng is waiting right here. He's going for the kill. We're still in speed up. Twila is forced out of the fight pretty early. Great damage coming out from Meiko. And let's watch SamD. He actually goes in for the potential reset. He does find the kill, but isn't able to walk back. And they just give 2 straight back to EDG.
And the range, like, I love the flash out in the end here, because he was dead for sure. And on the back end, we didn't see it, but Scout ends up respawning, teleporting in and getting the kill. And TT still trying to look for a pick as we come back into live. 29 minutes in. The game's not over, but you can see how big of a threat Viper is. He went back and bought a GA outright. 4 items versus 3 for SamD. And a minute 30 until the next dragon. EDG are fighting for Soul.
This is a very interesting situation because TT have proven they can definitely snipe out people before the team fight happens. But at this point, where EDG have Azir, Gangplank, and Aphelios, I think the scaling's too much. Even if they're able to kill 1 target, I still feel like EDG could finish the rest of the fight. So TT really have to parse out their ultimates. They cannot overinvest in killing 1 target, and it has to happen in relatively quick succession if they want to win the entire team fight.
Because we already talked about the Cannon Barrage of global pressure to delay the fight and get EDG into position. TT have to find that pick and get out, just to further your point. They need one before this dragon spawns, or they need a shockwave that hits 5 members, sets up for SamD. Very specific conditions for TT, and our chat might be like, oh, the gold's only 1,000 though, this is a close game. It is, but now with Soul up, now with EDG's condition of outscaling the game and that Moonstone Renewer to buff up these elongated fights, it feels like EDG are 1 fight away from being able to crush this victory.
And here we see Meiko is going in, already popped the turbo chem tank. They're trying to chase off members into the very deep into the mid lane and hopefully get an angle into this river. But TT are not budging from this position.
Does mean that Meiko Shirelli's referee is not up and available for this next fight, but bit of a small cooldown. EDG hitting off the side of this mid wave. TT do have priority in the river. Viper's going to be pushing mid. They might just give up this Infernal for the sake of challenging the base.
And they're actually just going for it. We see the pings go down from EDG. The Infernal Drake has already been taken away. This should be a free inhibitor on the side of EDG. Pretty smart way they played it. You know, with that mid inhibitor going down, that means on the next Drake, they should have a pretty easy time actually forcing their way into river first.
And we see the Cannon Barrage used for Flandre. Chat, don't get toxic. Remember that this is a very small cooldown at this point. We have 4 items with the Zeal Mortal Reminder picked up as Teeen gets bopped out a little bit. Viper ready with Calibrum and the Crescendum. Swellseed doesn't go through the choke as Flandre's waiting for his setup in the mid wave. He's doing 1100 with his crit right now. So Flandre is a big space pirate and he can hold off the rest of TT.
That is a 80% crit Gangplank incoming. A lot of damage from him. This is going to be a really scary situation, especially for someone like SamD. He has very low range, only 500 on the Samira. He's going to have to walk up to Flandre. And here we go.
Here we go. Nap time. Flandre waiting for the setup. Calibrum with a 4-man Moonlight Vigil. Meiko gets the perfect hook. And Jiejie's ready to engage. He's in the back line. Scout gets the 1 ult that matters. Chelizi sent off Crunch into the wall. Wallops him down, but he too will die. As Twila knows this is the game-ending play, he gets scurvy and falls off the pirate ship. EDG wipe him clean. And now they're running through mid.
I really didn't like that play from TT. I don't think taking mid lane tower down was important at all in that situation, and they group up for EDG to find a perfect fight onto them.
Twila, he's trying to waste some time here, Clement, but he too will die. A full-blown ace. They run through the mid, and EDG, are they the best team in the LPL? It's starting to look like they're top 3, no doubt, as they hold their position with a flawless win.
What I will say is EDG's early game setups have looked bar none to anyone in the LPL. I think the only one that comes close is probably BLG and what they've done. This was a textbook game on how to separate the duo of the jungler and the bot lane. Xiaopeng never got to see Samira in the early game. It was a beautiful early invade. Great jungle pathing from Jiejie to keep him off tilter and continue to force him onto that top side of the map. EDG, they had a couple of fumbles in the mid game, especially around the Drake, that allowed TT to come back. But at the end of the day, their composition just had so many win conditions. They had great scaling potential. They had great keep away on their comp as well. And TT, I felt like was just a little bit too inexperienced going for that mid lane tower. I don't think that one mattered at all whatsoever. And they should have hedged their bets into the Drake fights where they had an easier time making picks instead of going all 5-ban, all standing in front of a tower.
It's priorities, right? And it shifts as you get to be a better team. You know what priorities in the game you should be looking for. For TT, at the very least, you know, that mid game was a lot more competitive than we expected. The early game was set up by EDG perfectly with the Raptor invade, with Jiejie taking control of the jungle. And it felt like Xiaopeng on this Rek'Sai couldn't do anything in the end. So I have to give props that TT were actually competitive in a game they were shut out from very early.
Yeah, this was a good showing from TT. They definitely show that they have their own flair. They're not going to do what's expected of them, and they're going to use cheese picks and cheese champions to kind of get themselves an advantage over much tougher opponents. And that's what I love about these teams. A lot of times I enjoy underdogs on the Rift because they have to be the ones that are creative. They're not going to win a standard game. And that's when you see people pushing their boundaries and trying to come up with interesting solutions to questions that seem to be long-standing on the Rift.
I was going to add to that, you know, like Xiaopeng coming in added that bit of flair. You mentioned at the start of this series that TT's drafts were quite unique. And the fact is they've been one of the most innovative draft teams in the LPL, just from some of these sly pocket picks, from things like seeing Xiaopeng's Rek'Sai further strengthens that. And it's good to see Xiaopeng on the Rift. Wasn't the performance I expected, but at least he had some pivotal gameplay in that second game.
I will say, though, Xiaopeng and Twila, even though they've been a long-standing duo, they didn't look on the same page whatsoever. I don't think they were even on the same chapter, because we really haven't seen that Wombo combo from the Orianna come out and work for this team as it should have done with these Wombo combo compositions. Just taking a look at the overall game graph, we do see EDG strong lead early, TT coming back in the middle game, but at the final hurdle, TT really giving up the element of a surprise, doing a 5-man push onto the mid lane tower. Really easy for Jiejie to recognize that's the moment he wanted to open up. He gets a 4-man swirl seed, follow up with the ultimate on Gangplank, and that was lights out.
And look, I'll be honest about Twila here, just coming back to your other point. You know, Twila was a mid laner who we thought, well, he had some good moments on Zillion. As a mid laner, he was meddling, and it wasn't like there was a lot of good talk about him outside of some really big plays. You know, Captain has been hyped up as the best LDL mid laner coming into the split, finally in the LPL 2021. You know, that's who I thought we were going to be seeing as a mainstay. I want to see Captain back on this roster. I want to see Captain partnering up with an experienced voice in Xiaopeng and see what the dynamic is there. I think that's a lot more interesting for the fans. I think that's a lot more interesting to build, especially since you're building Captain from the ground up.
Yeah, and I do want to point out that the most exciting thing about TT right now, and this has been all the buzz on Weibo, is their 15-year-old prodigy that has hit Korean rank 1 in solo queue called Xiao Huangren. He's been known as a super aggressive jungler, and we see him playing Prowler's Kayn a lot in solo queue. So has a very interesting take, is, you know, there's never been a dud in rank 1. Like, if you think about the people that have reached rank 1, Xiaoxi, you know, Rise, and all those other players, that's what's really exciting. But unfortunately, due to his age, we might not see him until 2023.
I was going to say he's 15, Clement. Like, when is he going to get him? In 3 years.
He's already been touted as one of the best when he's 15. But in 3 years' time, that's maybe when Thunder Talk is going to shine.
He'll be like baby Bengi or something. You know, he's so young. He'll be that good of a jungler. At the very least, you know, this was a dominant stomp. If you're just tuning in now, EDG have smacked TT. We started broadcast an hour and 50 minutes ago, and EDG had some pretty clean games. You know, a couple of step-ups here from TT, but it's 0-4 now for this roster. And TT, we call the development roster. I think I put them around 12th or 13th. The way they're looking, they look like they're lined up with OMG. They look like they're bottom of the pack and have a long way to go before they could be relevant in our top 10.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And we talked about this split being very bifurcated between the haves and the have-nots. And the bottom four that we're mentioning are OMG, LGD, TT, and Rogue Warriors. Those four teams, just talent-wise, don't seem like they can make a good leap until... You know, they're probably going to... We call them lottery teams because essentially what they've done is they filled their rosters with LDL talent, and they're just trying to see what actually sticks. So, you know, they're not going to be competitive anytime soon, but I think what we should be keeping note of is which LDL players are actually making the cut on those teams, and they're going to have a great and very, very long career in the LPL. So, you know, we just want to do star scouting for now.
That's right. A lot of LDL players coming into the LPL have kind of leveled up, you know, from previous years. I think Xiaopeng being one of them is a really good example. You know, we have Shun coming in. We have Captain we talked about. You know, ZS has a long way to go on the E-Stars roster, but they are players to watch, especially since we are getting their first LPL split out of the way. Ladies and gentlemen, we are waiting for that interview. Just a note, we're not missing out on anything. Jiejie and Rare Adam will be in Shanghai. Of course, Jiejie are back in Beijing, so... We're good. No delays here today, folks. We're all good. It is kind of fun to move into week 4, though, Clement, and, you know, start talking about standings a little bit more in depth, getting an idea of who is the strongest team. EDG is now 5-0. They have dropped 2 individual games, one to OMG, one to FPX, and they beat FPX, which was a really exciting series. So they don't have a big challenge until V5 next week.
So what I'm seeing out of EDG is making me a little bit worried, and this has been a thing with EDG in the past, is when they over-index into macro games and they're playing very, very slow now, they actually have a negative GD at 15 right now. What tends to happen is their player mechanics tend to slide back, and we can see this in the highlight package where it definitely feels like Scout and maybe Meiko are kind of sliding a bit back from their peak performance. And this is something that I love to mention because Aaron has said this before. It's like the great thing about the LPL style is players are always in tippy-top shape because they're constantly on their toes. They're constantly looking out for crazy team fights that could erupt at any moment. And when you take yourself out of that situation, when you go into a more slow macro style, your players actually, their individual skills actually suffer as a result. So I'm seeing a little bit of that on EDG, and I want to see them actually be able to kind of flex between 2 different styles and just keep themselves in top form.
I want to see how that Viper Meiko lane elevates. We do have a bit of a highlight for you on Viper. Viper is someone who we've highlighted game after game. He's looking like Rookie of the Year right now, Clement. I'm sorry. No. I'm sorry to even say it. I love this as a Viper highlight when, you know, Viper this game, let's be quite real, missed a lot of ultimates, but then kind of did 200 things in this big fight here.
Yeah, he's just doing way too much damage, and Viper's really showing his range as well. So far, he's been playing all 6 of the top most picked AD carries, so he really has everything in his bag. But the formula still is the same for EDG. You just make sure nothing ever goes wrong in his lane. Jiejie has been using most of his early game to make sure the enemy jungle doesn't even come near the bot lane. And Viper's just having these ridiculous performances. He's up over 50 CS at the end game over his opponents right now. They're giving him all the resources, and he is that foundation that we haven't seen for many AD carries. He's a really Uzi-esque player where he makes sure that your team can play around him and you can reap the profits afterwards.
Willing to take those risks is really great. He'll be your MVP. He did 39% of the team's damage, so even though he missed those ultimates, the man's looking slick, and this is MVP number 6.
Oh, God.
MVP 6, we're in week 4. EDG have played 5 series. That means with 12 games total played, he's picked up half.
And that's a good sign of things to come because, you know, EDG, like we're talking about, has been playing around him the most. They've been giving him so many resources, and if he can constantly deliver, that means that, you know, they're in a unique situation of them on their own. We haven't really seen a team in the LPL index heavily into their AD carry and be successful with it. You know,
Right.
if you think about FBX, if you think about IG, they're much more about solo lanes. They're much more about their skirmishes with their junglers. And JD Gaming and Top Esports are the same category. So EDG are in a space of their own where no one is contesting them in this style.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how they develop. V5 coming up next week. EDG not playing for the rest of this week, ladies and gentlemen. So a quick 2-0. We are going to hand it over to Wendy, though, who's standing by